Welcome back. Tonight, we're slipping into the slow rhythm of the Middle Ages, but we're not stepping into battles or castles. There are no kings or knights here, no dragons to slay or sieges to endure. Instead, we're walking through the quiet corners of a medieval village, a place of thatched roofs, clattering looms, smoky hearths, and the soft clop of hooves on mud-packed roads. This is a world shaped more by the church bell than by the sword, where most lives unfold in fields and kitchens, workshops and pastures. So let your breath match the flicker of a candle in the corner of a stone cottage. Let a weight of the day slip into the folds of an old wool tunic. Whether you stay awake through every detail or drift off somewhere between the chicken coop and the barley harvest, the village will carry on. Let's begin. The cottage breathes in the morning slowly, like it's unsure the night is truly over. Cold clings to the stone walls, even as a pale light begins to slip in through the wooden slats of the shutters. There is no glass, just oiled parchment stretched thin to keep the worst of the wind out. It doesn't keep much. Inside, the hearth is cold. The ashes from last night's fire flattened and grey, but someone's already up. A woman crouches low, coaxing yesterday's coals back to life with dried bracken and breath. She doesn't speak. No one does at this hour. The sounds are enough. Wood creaking underfoot. A cough from the other side of the room. The soft grunt of a child still tangled in wool blankets. The family sleeps together in one room, all in one space. Privacy isn't something anyone expects. The parents on a straw mattress, the children nearby on sacks filled with hay or feathers, if they're lucky. The baby, if there is one, wrapped and tied close to a mother's side, swaddled tight against the chill. When the fire catches, the smell of smoke returns like an old friend. It mixes with the scent of damp wool and yesterday's porridge. A pot is placed over the flames, not with ceremony, but habit. Water, oats, a pinch of salt, nothing more. Meat is rare. Eggs, only if the hens are cooperative, and today they are not. A rooster finally crows, too late to be useful. He sounds proud anyway. The father rises next, pulling on rough-spun hose and a tunic stiff at the seams. His boots are dry today, a small victory. He runs a hand through his hair, not to style it, but just to feel that he's awake. He doesn't say good morning. He nods. That's enough. One of the older children starts gathering kindling from beside the hearth. Another fetches water from the barrel outside, bracing for the cold that will bite at bare arms. Their feet move across the packed earth floor with practiced caution. The dog shifts in the corner, ears twitching, but doesn't rise. Not yet. Breakfast is quiet and warm. A thin gruel eaten with wooden spoons, shared from the same pot. The baby suckles, the fire crackles, the world outside is still grey, no one is in a hurry. But everyone knows what must be done. By the time the church bell tolls faintly in the distance, calling matins for those who care to hear it, the family is already moving. The day has begun, gently, without fanfare, as always. Outside the cottage, the village begins to stir, not with shouts or commotion, but with the steady sounds of a place waking up the only way it knows how, slowly, practically, without complaint. There is no rush, just a weight of tasks that never really stopped, only paused while people slept. The paths between cottages, a little more than hardened dirt, rutted from cartwheels and stitched with the prints of boots, hooves and chickens. A thin mist hangs low, gathering at the base of fences and beneath eaves, reluctant to leave. Smoke curls lazily from a few chimneys, each column a quiet flag of life continuing on. A boy trots past with a yoke across his shoulders, balancing 2 sloshing buckets drawn from the well. He grimaces with each step, not out of pain, but calculation, trying to keep the water from slopping onto his boots. The buckets are heavy and the well is far, but no one's going to carry them for him. He doesn't expect that. In another doorway, an old woman shakes out a rug, if a woven scrap of wool can be called that, and lays it back down, as if this gesture alone might keep the cold from creeping in. A pair of hens watch her, then cluck disapprovingly and strut off, as if they have more pressing appointments elsewhere. A small group of men gather near the smithy, though the forge is not yet lit. One of them spits, another rubs his beard, and a third shifts a bit of straw with the toe of his boot. They talk in murmurs about the frost, the price of barley, and someone's ox that went lame 2 days back. No one interrupts. No one needs to be right. The talk is less about information and more about the comfort of words spoken aloud after a long night. Near the church, the bell tower leans ever so slightly. It hasn't fallen yet, which means there's no reason to fix it. A monk, or perhaps just a man who looks like one, walks along the edge of the green, holding a small sack of bread crusts. A few geese follow him, waddling with confidence. They know the routine. A girl with wind-chapped cheeks begins sweeping the space outside her family's door. Her broom little more than bundled twigs. She hums faintly, though the tune has no name. It's the kind of melody that's carried more by rhythm than music. The dust doesn't mind. By now, the sun is somewhere behind the clouds, doing its best. The village is fully awake, though you'd never know it from the noise. This isn't a place that shouts. It shuffles, it murmurs, it stretches, and then it gets to work. By mid-morning, the pace has settled into something familiar. The novelty of the new day is gone. In its place, routine, the kind that doesn't require thinking, just doing. Hands find tools the way they always do, without fanfare or pause. In a small garden behind one of the cottages, a man stoops low over a bed of leeks. He's pulling weeds, slowly, one root at a time. His fingers are stained from years of this. Dirt has settled into the folds of his knuckles like it plans to stay. Every so often, he straightens his back and winces, not loudly, just enough to notice the ache, and then bends again. His wife is nearby, mending a fence with pieces of wood. That used to be something else. Nothing is thrown away here. Boards that once held up shelves are now posts. Broken buckets become firewood. Even bent nails are saved, straightened by hammer, and used again. Further along the lane, 2 boys chase a pig that has absolutely no intention of going back into its pen. It squeals with glee, or indignation is hard to tell, and darts just out of reach. The boys don't shout. They grin, breathless, slipping in the mud as they try to corner it. Eventually, an older man appears, mutters something under his breath, and holds out a turnip. The pig, clearly the cleverest one present, follows him home with smug satisfaction. In the small field at the village edge, a woman bends over rows of flax, checking the bundles left to rot in the dew. Her head is wrapped in cloth. Her sleeves are tied back. She works without looking up, humming a hymn that's older than the village. The air smells of wet earth and decaying leaves, and the hem of her dress is already soaked. She doesn't seem to mind. The blacksmith's hammer rings out at last, a clean, confident rhythm, steel on steel. Each strike punctuates the air like a heartbeat. People don't look up. They don't need to. The sound is comfort, proof that something useful is being shaped. Near the stables, a boy with a mop of hair and a nose perpetually smudged with soot tends to the horses. He isn't brushing them so much as talking to them, complaining about things they don't understand and definitely don't care about. One horse sneezes, possibly in reply. Laundry is hung along a low rope between trees. Shirts and linens, worn thin, dance faintly in the breeze. Somewhere, a spindle clatters to the floor, followed by a muffled curse. A dog barks. A door creaks. A cartwheel groans. The world moves. No one here has free time, but no one is rushing either. The hours are long and the tasks many, but they are shared. One hand threads, another hammers, another cooks. All part of the same rhythm, the rhythm of getting by. When the sun reaches its highest point, hidden behind grey clouds more often than not, the village slows, not stops, slows. It's time for the midday meal, though no one calls it that. It's just what comes next. The smells drift before the sounds. Stew, always stew. Thin, mostly, but warm and full of whatever was available this morning. A few onions, a wrinkled carrot, a scrap of salted meat shaved thin. If someone in the family is unwell, perhaps a poached egg. If someone's been lucky, maybe a hunk of cheese with a stubborn rind. But always bread. Hard, dark, and edged like stone. In one cottage, the woman ladles steaming broth into wooden bowls. The fire crackles under the pot, smoke curling up toward the thatch roof and escaping through a hole that's both intentional and unconvincing. A girl fans the flames while trying not to spill the water she fetched earlier. Her feet are still damp. The family eats together, seated close on stools or just crouched near the hearth. There's no table in the grand sense, just a flat board set across two barrels, or a wide stone used for kneading bread that pulls double duty. Spoons are shared. Conversation is sparse. It's not silence out of solemnity, just practicality. You don't waste words when chewing takes effort. A toddler gnaws determinedly on a crust, more focused than anyone else in the room. Beside him, his older brother dips the same crust into stew, softening it for easier swallowing. No one told him to. It's just something you learn to do when you're hungry and young and living close. Outside, it's the same. A man eats his meal on an upturned bucket, elbows on knees, watching his goats with mild suspicion. Across the lane, a pair of women sit side by side, backs pressed to a sunny wall, bowls in their laps. They say nothing for 5 minutes, then trade 2 whole sentences about a sick cow and the smell of someone's chimney smoke. That's plenty. The dog finally stirs, tail wagging faintly, and is rewarded with a bone that's already been boiled twice. He takes it with great dignity and retires to his spot near the hearth, chewing with his eyes half shut. There's no rush to finish. The work will still be there. The flax doesn't vanish. The chickens don't pluck themselves. When the bowls are empty, they are wiped with bread or rinsed at the well. No scrap is wasted. The pot is scraped clean. The fire is stoked again, not urgently, just enough to be ready later. Someone spits into the ashes. Someone else belches and then says nothing at all. The moment stretches. A few minutes of stillness. Then someone stands. The rhythm begins again. The village settles back into its pace, not slow exactly, but steady. The kind of rhythm that doesn't ask questions. Afternoon is for continuing what the morning started. In the fields beyond the cottages, figures bend low beneath the sky. Men and women side by side, pulling weeds, turning soil, checking the young shoots for pests. The land is never still. Even in rest, it demands attention. A mist patch today is a weaker harvest come autumn. A girl walks the edge of the furrows with a basket strapped to her back. She picks stones from the soil and tosses them into the hedgerow. Each toss makes a dull thud. She hums quietly, not because anyone is listening, but because it makes the task feel less long. Closer to the woods, a boy gathers kindling. His hands are scratched, his tunic caught on a thorn, but he keeps at it. Dry branches are harder to find after rain, and the best ones are always hidden beneath the brush. He pauses only once to swat a gnat from his face and mutter a complaint that no one hears. In the village itself, smoke drifts again from chimneys, not for cooking now, but for heating water. A pot bubbles as someone boils linens. Another woman sits nearby, scraping mud from the soles of shoes with a stick. The dog watches her without interest. The carpenter works in a shaded lean-to beside his home. He smooths the edge of a bench with long, slow strokes. The wood curls up like ribbon under his plane. He doesn't count the pieces he finishes. He just keeps going until the light shifts enough to tell him it's time to stop. Children who have finished their chores wander toward the stream. Some carry laundry to rinse. Others skip rocks. One boy tries to catch a frog. He fails. The frog escapes with a plop and what sounds like a smug croak. The boy shrugs and finds another stone. A few older women sit with baskets in their laps, weaving with quick fingers. They don't speak much, but when they do, their laughter comes easily, not loud, just worn in, like something they've shared for years. Nothing is urgent, nothing is idle. The hours pass as they always have, with effort, yes, but also with a kind of quiet acceptance. There is always work. There is always something that needs doing. And so the village continues, its pulse measured not in moments, but in motion. By late afternoon, the village green grows busier. Not loud, not crowded, but stirring with a quiet concentration. This is the time for errands, for trades, for small obligations that keep the village threaded together. A crooked path runs through the center of the village, lined with carts, crates, and woven baskets laid out with care. It is not a market in the grand sense, just a few familiar faces offering familiar things. A basket of turnips, a handful of eggs, a bundle of herbs tied with twine that smells sharp and green. One man sits beside a wheelbarrow full of peat bricks, his arms folded over his chest. He does not call out. He does not haggle. Those who need them already know the price. Children trail behind parents, barefoot and curious. A girl eyes a wooden comb laid carefully atop a cloth scrap. She doesn't touch it, just looks. Her mother gives her a glance and a nod, and the girl beams. The comb disappears into a pocket, with the kind of pride that makes a small object feel like treasure. Near the well, a woman arranges bundles of linen on a board. They are clean, patched, and still damp at the edges. She does not shout. She waits. Someone will need them. They always do. The baker's wife leans from her doorway, arms dusted with flour, and exchanges a few coins for a sack of grain. Behind her, the scent of rising bread slips into the air, soft and sour. It clings to the nose, familiar and promising. A monk passes slowly, robes gathered against the dust. He carries a small pouch and speaks with 2 or 3 villagers in soft tones. A few coins change hands. A blessing is murmured. Then he moves on. In a shaded corner, a man sharpens blades with a whetstone, small knives, shears, a sickle or 2. He does not lift his eyes often. The stone sings against the metal in slow, practiced circles. Sparks blink and vanish. 2 neighbors speak over a fence, their arms resting on the wooden rails. Their words drift easily, like smoke. A calf born too early, a roof that needs patching. A prayer answered, or maybe not. It is less about solving and more about sharing. No one lingers long. Everyone has something waiting at home. A pot to stir, a roof to mend, a child to quiet. By the time the shadows stretch across the path and the sun slips behind the tallest trees, the lane has emptied again. The baskets are lighter, the errands done or postponed. The village exhales once more, and the day begins to soften. The sound comes gently at first, not loud, not rushed. A single toll of the bell from the stone tower at the heart of the village. It does not command, it reminds. The hour has turned again. The church is small but solid, built of stone and timber. Its walls are cool to the touch even in summer. Moss climbs the edges, where rain collects and time forgets to clean. A wooden cross stands above the entry, weathered and pale. It leans just slightly, as if bowing to the ground below. Inside, the air changes. It smells of wax and stone, of old wood and older prayers. A row of benches runs down each side, worn smooth by generations of elbows and knees. The altar is simple, draped in cloth that was once white and now simply isn't. Candles flicker, their flames small but determined. A few villagers drift in. They do not arrive together. No one speaks. Some kneel, some sit. Some simply stand for a moment with their heads bowed. The silence is not heavy. It is familiar, like a coat hung in the same spot each day. A boy enters, fidgeting. His mother lays a firm hand on his shoulder, and he stills. The priest appears without announcement. His robes are patched but clean, his beard neat, his eyes tired in the way all priests' eyes seem to be. He nods to those gathered and begins. The prayer is plain. The Latin phrases slide between the beams and out the high window, where birds sometimes perch. The villagers don't repeat the words exactly. They know some, guess the rest. Their faith is not exact. It is rhythmic, shaped by habit and hope more than doctrine. Outside, the bell rings again. Not for the priest, not for God, for the hour. It marks time, as it always has. A call to prayer, yes, but also a signal for those in the fields, those by the hearth, those stirring the pot or weaving on the loom. Everyone hears it. Not everyone listens. That's understood. After the prayer, no one rushes out. A few linger. One woman lights a candle for her sister. Another scratches a name into the soft wood of the pew with the edge of her fingernail. A boy sneezes. Someone coughs. A door creaks open again and lets in the late afternoon sun. By the time the church is empty, the shadows outside have lengthened. The bell rope swings slightly, not from use, but from the breeze that sneaks through the cracked stone. The priest returns to his small room in the back. He has a letter to copy and a chicken to feed. The village, once again, turns its attention homeward. The light is changing. The day is beginning to end. The light has shifted. It slides in from the west now, lower and softer, painting the village in long shadows and golden smudges. The warmth from the sun is weaker, but the colour is richer, like honey spilled across thatched roofs and muddy paths. In the cottage yards, small fires are being rekindled. Smoke rises in crooked spirals, clinging to chimneys before drifting away like forgetful thoughts. The smell of wood smoke settles over everything, mixing with the earth, the animals, and the sour tang of boiled greens. A woman stands at her doorstep with a basket on her hip. She counts eggs with her thumb, not because she expects surprise, but because it's what she always does. One is cracked. She sets it aside without comment and walks back inside. Children begin returning from errands, trailing bits of dust and grass behind them. One boy arrives with a bundle of kindling tied in a cloth. Another carries a small pail of milk that sloshes with each uneven step. No one congratulates them. They're expected. The day is not done yet. Inside the cottages, pots are stirred. A few vegetables sliced thin, boiled soft. Barley, if it's a good day. Bread, torn and toasted at the fire's edge. The meals are not large, but they are warm. Warm counts for a lot. A girl kneels beside a stone basin, scrubbing mud from her tunic. Her fingers are raw and pink, her back hunched without thought. She hums quietly, a tune too old to remember the words. The water darkens, then clears again. At the edge of the green, a man repairs a gate. His hammer taps gently, more of a suggestion than a strike. The nails are old, the wood is older. Still, it holds. Nearby, a dog rolls in the dirt and sighs like a philosopher who has given up on debate. The village is quieter now, not silent but slower, softer. No carts pass, no trades are made. The lanes are mostly empty, save for a few figures moving like memories. A woman carrying herbs, a boy chasing a chicken that doesn't need chasing. A man returning from the stream with damp cuffs and cold hands. Lanterns are lit one by one, not many, just enough to push back the dark from the corners. The light flickers and dances on walls that lean slightly to one side. Shadows stretch across the packed dirt floors and vanish under low tables. There is no rush. The night isn't here yet, not fully, but it's coming, and the village knows how to welcome it. Quietly, with soup and kindling and shoes left at the door. The final meal of the day is not a grand event. It arrives without announcement, without ceremony. In most homes, it is served in the same pot it was cooked in, ladled out by hand, portioned by instinct. No one is counting. No one is asking for more than their share. Supper is often soup, root vegetables, barley, sometimes dried peas or beans. Bits of meat, if any, are rare and well stretched. A shred of salted pork might flavor the whole pot. No one looks for it. They're content knowing it was there. Families gather close around the hearth, not out of tradition, but necessity. The fire is the only warmth now, aside from the warmth that passes between shoulders pressed together. Cushions, if they exist, are threadbare and shared. A low table holds wooden bowls and a single loaf of bread wrapped in cloth to keep it from going stale. Children eat quickly, slurping quietly, their spoons clinking against the sides of bowls. Their feet are bare, their hair still damp from a rinse at the basin. One tries to hide a second helping behind his sleeve. It doesn't work. No one scolds him. An older woman dips her bread into the broth and chews slowly. She doesn't speak much anymore, but she listens. Her eyes move from face to face, catching pieces of conversation, holding them like soft cloth. After the bowls are emptied, they're set aside, wiped clean with the last crusts of bread. There are no plates to wash, only spoons to rinse and the pot to soak for tomorrow. A child carries it to the basin, careful not to spill. Then comes the best part of the day, not because it is loud or exciting. Quite the opposite. The fire burns low, and the stories begin. They are not read from books. There are few books here. Instead, the stories come from memory. A grandfather tells one, leaning forward, voice gravelly and low. It might be about a fox who tricked a farmer, or a girl who danced with shadows. The details change each time. No one minds. The children lean in, wide-eyed, not from fear, but wonder. The world of stories feels larger than the cottage, taller than the ceiling beams. A small boy gasps at the ending, even though he's heard it a dozen times before. A woman smiles, setting a stitch into the hem of a tunic as the tail winds down. A man scratches the ear of the dog curled at his feet. Outside, an owl calls once, then twice. The fire shifts, sending a brief shower of sparks into the dark. No one claps, no one comments. The story ends when it ends, and silence returns like a familiar friend. The day is nearly finished, but not quite. There are embers to tend and dreams still waiting to arrive. As the last light fades from the sky, the world inside the cottages begins to soften. Shadows grow longer, stretching up the walls and folding into corners. The fire in the hearth burns lower, its heat settling into the stones and floorboards. The work is done, the meals are eaten, the stories have been told. Now comes the quietest part of the day. Beds, such as they are made ready. There are no mattresses in the way you might expect, just bundles of straw wrapped in cloth, sometimes with a blanket or an old piece of wool, if the family has one to spare. Children curl up together, wrapped in whatever warmth is available. No one sleeps alone unless they are very old or very unlucky. A mother unties her apron, folding it carefully and placing it near the hearth. She tucks a loose lock of hair behind her ear and kneels beside her youngest, adjusting the blanket until it covers both feet. The child is already half asleep, thumb tucked beneath a cheek, breath slow and even. The father checks the door, wedging a block of wood against the frame. He nods once and says nothing. There is no need. The sounds of the night are familiar and welcome. The wind brushing against the roof, a creak from the beams, the low snore of a pig outside the window. The village is not silent, but it is still. A candle flickers on a shelf, its wick nearly gone. One more moment of light before it dims. A woman blows it out with a single breath. The smoke coils upward, then disappears. In another home, a grandmother rubs her knees with a cloth soaked in warm water. She whispers something to herself and lowers herself onto the straw bed with care. Her fingers trace a charm hung near the window, a circle of twine, a carved piece of bone. It has no power beyond what she gives it. That is enough. The fire is banked, the coals covered gently to hold heat through the night. A few coughs echo across the lanes, followed by a door being closed with care. Outside, a dog barks once, then goes quiet. The stars are faint tonight, veiled by thin clouds. The moon is high, watching without judgment. Inside, the village settles deeper. A boy turns in his sleep. A woman sighs. A man shifts to find a better position, then gives up and closes his eyes. There is nothing left to finish today, no task left undone. The world, for now, is at rest, and sleep comes slowly, not all at once, not to everyone, but it comes, just as it always does. While most of the village sleeps, a few remain awake, not from worry or fear, but from custom. Someone always stays up a little longer, to watch the coals, to listen for trouble, to tend to the things that don't sleep. A man leans against the doorframe of his cottage, arms folded, eyes adjusting to the dark. The stars have broken through now, scattered unevenly across the sky. The moon hangs low, pale and watchful. A breeze slips between the houses, gentle and dry, rustling thatch and nudging the shutters. He walks a short path between homes, stepping quietly to avoid waking dogs or children. His lantern is simple, wood and oiled parchment, and its glow is more suggestion than light. He carries it more from habit than need. He knows every dip and stone on this path. He's walked it enough times to feel the earth remember him. Along the outer fence, he stops, listens. Nothing but the wind and the occasional low groan of a sleeping ox. That's good. That's how it should be. Across the village, another light flickers faintly behind a cottage window. Inside, an old woman rocks slowly on a wooden stool. She doesn't sleep much anymore. Her joints ache, and her dreams come too loud. So she sits, wrapped in a shawl, warming her hands by the fire and whispering prayers no one else hears. A cat slinks past the well, its tail high, moving like water in shadow. It pauses at the sound of a distant cough, then disappears behind a pile of wood. Its work, unspoken and unofficial, is to keep the mice away. It takes the job seriously, in its own lazy way. The night has its own rhythm, different from the day. Slower, yes, but not empty. Embers shift in the hearths. Floors creak beneath the shifting weight of sleepers. Someone mutters in a dream. A baby fusses and is hushed by a familiar hand. Outside, the trees sway gently at the edge of the fields. They whisper secrets to one another, stories of winds that passed through, of birds that nested and left, of the fox seen earlier trotting along the hedgerow like it owned the place. The night watcher makes his final round. He nods once at the chapel, once at the forge, once at the well. Nothing out of place. That is all he needs. He returns home. The lantern is hung near the door. The coals are still warm. He lowers himself onto the straw and wraps a blanket around his shoulders. Sleep will come. Maybe not soon, but it will come. The village exhales, and everything holds its breath until morning. In the hush between midnight and dawn, the village becomes something different. Not empty, not lifeless, just quieter than quiet. A place suspended, not quite dreaming, not quite awake. Inside the cottages, sleep drapes itself over the people like another layer of wool. Shallow at first, then deeper, weightier. Children sigh softly into their blankets. Fathers roll onto their sides. A woman murmurs something in her sleep, a name perhaps, or a word without meaning in waking hours. Dreams gather like mist, not dramatic ones, not tales of heroism or adventure. More often, they take the shape of everyday things. A missing bucket found, a door that will not shut, a goose wearing a bonnet for no reason at all. These are not the stuff of legends, but they matter here. They carry small meanings. In one cottage, a child stirs and then grows still again. The warmth of the fire, long since dimmed, clings faintly to the stones. The dog at the door lifts its head, listening to something that no one else hears. It blinks, decides it is not worth barking at, lays its head back down. The fields outside are dark, still damp from the evening chill. The scarecrow stands in silhouette, arms lifted, as if in greeting or surrender. Nothing moves but the wind in the hedgerow and the occasional rustle of straw on the barn roof. At the edge of the village, a candle flickers in the window of the priest's small chamber. He is writing slowly, carefully. Not a sermon, just a record. Weather, a birth, a cow that died too early. The ink scratches gently across the parchment. The candle dips lower. Somewhere, an owl calls. Once, then again. Its voice is soft, but it reaches far. The sound wraps itself around the cottages like a ribbon, tying one roof to the next. Everyone hears it, even if they don't wake. It's part of the night's grammar. In the woods nearby, the branches creak faintly, not from anything sinister, just from the memory of the wind. A fox watches the village from a distance, eyes reflecting light that isn't there. It does not enter. It only observes, and then disappears. The hours stretch. Time in these moments does not tick. It drips, slowly, softly, without need of measurement. The fire settles to its last glow. A log collapses in the hearth. Someone sighs in their sleep, and all across the village the dreams continue, unrushed, unremarkable, and entirely enough. Before the rooster crows, before the first door creaks open, the sky begins to change. The stars do not fade all at once. They retreat gently, one by one, like guests leaving quietly before dawn. A thin band of pale blue stretches across the eastern edge of the sky, soft and uncertain. The village has not stirred yet, not truly, but something is different. The stillness has changed texture. It is no longer night silence, but morning's waiting. The earth feels it first. The stone walls of the cottages lose their chill. The dew begins to form along fence posts and leaves. A draught slides beneath a wooden door and slips across the floor. Inside the cottages, no one has spoken, yet someone has stirred. A woman lifts her head from her pillow of bundled cloth. She listens, not for danger, but for rhythm. The dog shifts beside the hearth, thumps its tail once against the floor, and stretches with a soft grunt. Coals are still warm. The fire can be brought back. In another home, a child turns over, tugging a blanket closer. A rooster, still unsure of himself, lets out a short crow. It's too early. He tries again, louder this time. No one is impressed. The first door opens, not loudly, but with a familiar creak. A man steps outside, wool shawl draped over his shoulders. He looks at the sky, squints, and spits into the dirt without ceremony. Behind him, smoke begins to rise from the hearth. The house is waking. A second door opens. A girl with a basket stands barefoot on the step, breathing in the morning. She stretches her arms overhead, fingers spread wide, and yawns without covering her mouth. Then she steps down and disappears toward the hen house. The well creaks. A bucket is lowered, then pulled up with a slosh and a grunt. The water is cold and clean, and no one remarks on either. The sky is now more light than dark. The mist lingers at the ground like a lazy guest not yet ready to leave. Chimneys begin to puff smoke again, one after another. Thin lines, straight as thread, climbing into the still air. There is no rush, no loud call to begin, but the village is stirring. The night is gone, not banished, just folded away. And the day begins again, the same way it always has, with breath, with silence, with the weight of work waiting patiently in the corners. Once the light has settled and the warmth begins to nudge through the mist, the village turns to water, not as ceremony, but as necessity. The chores tied to it are quiet, deliberate, and constant. Everyone has a task, and most of them begin here. At the edge of the cottages, the path to the well is already worn smooth by bare feet. Two boys take turns lowering a wooden bucket into the stone mouth, leaning their full weight into the rope to bring it back up. It groans and sloshes, the handle twisting in their small hands. They do not complain. This is what morning looks like. The water is ladled into pails, carried carefully between homes. Not a drop should be wasted. It's not just for drinking. It's for cooking, scrubbing, soaking, rinsing, softening. And so the trips are frequent. One for the pot, one for the basin, one just in case. Near the stream, further beyond the farthest fences, a few women gather with bundles tucked under their arms. Linen shirts, woolen skirts, the occasional scrap too torn to wear, but still worth cleaning. They kneel along the water's edge, stones under their knees, sleeves rolled high. A rhythm begins. Dip, scrub, twist, rinse. The clothes slap against the washing stones, sending droplets into the air. No one hurries, no one stops. The conversations are light, broken by grunts and the sound of cloth wrung tight. They speak of small things, a cousin's name day, a fox spotted near the chickens, a child's tooth finally lost. One woman chuckles, another rolls her eyes. The stream does not mind. Further downstream, a girl collects watercress, placing it carefully into a woven basket. She inspects each sprig with care, choosing the ones that look crisp and green. Her hands are red from the cold, but she hums tune anyway. It's not for the cress, it's for herself. Back in the cottages, the water is heated over low fires. A toddler is stripped of yesterday's dust and gently scrubbed in a shallow basin. He protests at first, then settles, lulled by the warmth and the patient hand of his mother. She rinses his hair with a clay jug and wraps him in a woolen cloth that still smells faintly of smoke and lavender. An older man sharpens his razor on a stone, then splashes his face from a pail. His shave is quick, with more caution than vanity. He wipes his chin with a damp cloth and grunts at his reflection in the window pane. It blurs back at him, unimpressed. By mid-morning, the water is soaked into everything. Hair, cloth, soil. The air itself is heavy with steam and dampness. Yet nothing feels heavy. It is simply part of the day, like the sun or the wind or the scraping of spoons against bowls. And so the buckets are refilled, the laundry is wrung and hung, the basins are emptied into the garden paths. The village is clean enough for now. It will not last. But then again, it never does. In a quiet part of the village, just past the last row of cottages, a low shed leans slightly to one side. Its roof is patched with bark and moss, and the door hangs a little crooked on its hinges. Inside, it smells of wool and old wood, faintly sweet from the years of spinning oil and dust. This is where the weaving is done, not by everyone, but by those with the patience for it. The rhythm of the loom is steady and soft, less a noise than a heartbeat. Tap, pull, slide, beat. The motion repeats itself, precise and unhurried. The woman at the loom is older, with hands shaped by work and memory. Her fingers move as if the threads know where to go before she tells them. She does not count aloud. The pattern is in her head, and she's woven it before, dozens of times. It changes slightly each time, but not in ways anyone would notice. Skeins of dyed wool hang on a line behind her, swaying faintly in the breeze that slips through a missing plank. Reds made from madder root, yellows from onion skin, browns and greys from bark and ash. The colours are not vivid, but they are honest, earthy, warm, useful. Outside, two girls card wool on low stools. They pull the fibres gently through spiked paddles, fluffing and straightening them, chatting softly as they work. A small cat watches their movements with great interest, occasionally batting at a piece of stray fluff that escapes into the air. The weaver works in silence, not because she prefers it, but because she doesn't need to speak. The loom does the talking. Its voice is wooden and soft, steady and sure. Each pass of the shuttle adds another line to the fabric, another piece of something someone will wear, sell, or wrap around a sleeping child. Nearby, a boy delivers a basket of spun yarn. He sets it by the door and waits. The weaver glances at him once, then nods. He nods back. No words are exchanged, but something has been agreed upon. Later, when the day is warmer, a neighbour may stop by to ask for a length of cloth. Maybe something to line a cloak. Maybe a gift for a cousin's wedding. The weaver will nod again, offer tea if there's any left, and run her hand across the cloth already growing under her fingers. By midday, the light through the wall slats casts stripes across the floor. Dust floats between them, slow and silent. The loom continues. Tap, pull, slide, beat. There are faster ways to make cloth, but none better. Not here, not now. And so the threads cross, one by one, until something whole appears. They do not speak, of course, but the animals are just as much a part of the village as the people. They move with it, rest with it, complain with it in their own particular ways. Their rhythms are folded into the daily pattern like any other task. In the yard beside the largest cottage, a pair of oxen chew slowly under the shade of a bare branched tree. They do not look particularly motivated. Their work is in the field, but not today. Their yoke leans against the fence, the leather straps stiff with age. One of them lets out a long, low breath. The other follows suit, possibly out of solidarity. Chickens scratch near the corners of buildings, flicking dirt backward with sudden enthusiasm. Their movements are erratic but strangely purposeful. One stands on a pile of firewood, declaring something with great volume, then hops down without explanation. They cluster near anyone holding a scrap of bread, hopeful and relentless. Goats wander further, heads lowered to sniff at anything green, edible or not. A boy tries to herd them toward a pen, using only claps and gentle words. They ignore both. One trots the other way. Another climbs a low wall just because she can. The boy throws his arms up and mutters something that is not quite swearing. Pigs wallow in the muck near the edge of the village. Their pen is little more than a fence and some luck. They grunt and nudge at one another, snuffling through straw and soggy peelings. A girl tosses in a bucket of scraps and watches them with mild satisfaction. One pig looks up at her, eyes small and ancient, then returns to chewing. Dogs do not belong to any one person, not really. They belong to the village. They patrol the lanes, nap near warm stones, bark at absolutely nothing, then act as if they've saved everyone. At night, they curl near doors and dream of bones. In the morning, they stretch and wait for someone to drop a crust. Cats are fewer. They drift in and out of windows, across rooftops, under carts. They do not answer when called, unless the voice is particularly persuasive or the offering particularly smelly. Still, their work is constant. Mice are rare here, and the cats intend to keep it that way. Even the horses, used mostly for pulling carts or carrying goods, have their own pace. They are stabled near the smithy, where the air smells of ash and leather. A boy brushes one slowly, rhythmically, the strokes more for himself than the horse. The animal twitches an ear but does not move. Every creature has its place. None are idle, none are rushed, and all, in their own way, shape the sound and breath of the village. When the sun begins to dip again, the animals settle. The chickens climb into their coop. The pigs lie side by side in the straw. The goats, finally, return to their pen, as if it had been their idea all along. And the oxen, they chew, as always, as they always will. Everywhere in the village things are made, mended, shaped, and sharpened. Tools are not owned lightly. They are not replaced without cause. A bent blade is straightened. A cracked handle is wrapped and used again. A good tool, when cared for, lasts longer than the hands that hold it. In a small shed near the green, the blacksmith works steadily. The fire in his forge burns low but hot, bellows wheezing with each low pump. His apron is scorched and stained. His hands are thick with callus. The hammer falls in a slow, even rhythm, not hurried, not showy. He doesn't glance up unless someone speaks directly to him, and even then, only briefly. On the anvil rests a horseshoe, half-shaped. Nearby, a pile of nails, bent tongs, and odd scraps wait to be repurposed. Nothing goes to waste. He reshapes iron the way a baker shapes dough, firmly, repeatedly, until he yields. A few steps away, a wheelwright is tightening the last iron band around a wooden wheel. The spokes have been carved by hand, fitted one by one, and set with care. A boy watches him work, fascinated not by the wheel itself, but by the quiet precision of the man's hands. There is no explaining it. You learn by watching. You learn by doing. Elsewhere, a cooper repairs a cracked barrel. He pries off the bands, checks the staves, adjusts a few with his small knife, and taps them back into place. The work is slow but essential. Barrels hold more than ale and salted meat. They carry the weight of trade, storage, and survival. A good barrel is worth its own weight. A woman crouches near her doorstep, patching a basket with thin lengths of willow. Her fingers are quick and steady. The basket was her mother's. It will belong to her daughter. The repairs are not perfect, but they are honest. She hums to herself while she works. The tune has no name. It is for her hands, not her ears. Further along, a man sharpens his scythe, testing the edge against his thumb, then nodding with satisfaction. He hangs it by the door, ready for the next cutting. A child runs past and is told, not for the first time, to keep clear of it. The child nods and forgets immediately. Tools are not admired. They are used, cared for, passed down. Every notch tells a story. Every worn grip fits only one hand just right. To lose a tool is to lose time. To break one is to feel a small failure. But to mend it is to restore more than wood and metal. And so the smith hammers. The wheelwright fits his band. The cooper seals his barrel. The weaver ties a knot. The basket maker tucks in one last strip of willow. The village does not boast. It builds, one tool at a time. There are no chalkboards in the village, no desks, no bells to signal lessons, no schedules tacked to the wall. But teaching happens every day, in every corner, without pause. Knowledge here is passed through hands and eyes, not books. A child learns by doing, not by being told. Near the garden, a boy crouches beside his mother, watching her pinch seeds between her fingers and press them into the soil. She doesn't explain what she's doing. She doesn't need to. He sees how deep she presses, how she smooths the dirt afterward with the side of her hand, how she watches the sky before choosing where to plant. He mimics her. She nods once, then moves on. A girl sits beside her grandmother at the spinning wheel. The thread runs through the older woman's fingers like water. The girl is clumsy with it. Too fast, then too slow. The spindle wobbles. The thread snaps. She frowns. Her grandmother clicks her tongue softly and ties the ends back together. Then she lets the girl try again. The wheel creaks on. In the forest edge, two boys walk with a man carrying a sack. He stops now and then, crouching low to examine a cluster of mushrooms or a patch of herbs. He says the names under his breath. The boys repeat them. He pulls only what is needed, leaves the rest. They watch his hands more than his mouth. Inside a cottage, a child watches her father sharpen a blade. She leans against the doorway, silent, her eyes following the arc of the whetstone. He doesn't speak until she reaches forward, curious. He places the knife in her hand, guides her wrist, and then lets go. She listens more to the feel of it than anything said aloud. Not all lessons are about work. Some are about manners, patience, respect. A boy is told to wait before speaking. A girl is reminded to share the last piece of bread. These things are taught with raised eyebrows, not voices, with gestures, with quiet repetitions. The church offers some instruction too, though few children attend daily. The priest reads slowly, his Latin carefully chosen. A boy copies letters onto a scrap of bark with a bit of charcoal. His fingers are blackened, his letters crooked. Still, he grins. In time, the children learn enough to carry what matters. Not just how to spin or plant or carve, but when to be quiet, when to speak, when to work. They learn not from a single teacher, but from the village itself. Every adult is a lesson. Every task is a page. By the time they are grown, most children cannot explain how they learned. They only know that they did, the way their parents did, the way their children will, slowly, repeatedly, without fanfare, just as it has always been. In the Middle Ages, a single day carries the feel of all 4 seasons. Morning begins like early spring, with mist and chill, the world just waking. Midday leans towards summer, warm on the skin, bright against thatched roofs. Afternoon mimics autumn, quiet, steady, a little heavy. And evening brings the stillness of winter, even if the ground hasn't yet frozen. By now, the sun has slanted low again. The colours of the village shift once more. Wood darkens. Stone takes on a softer tone. Even the animals move more slowly, sensing that the day has passed its peak. A chicken hops onto its perch without being told. A horse lowers its head into the feed bucket and stays there. The wind picks up, rushing through narrow lanes like a tired visitor heading home. The villagers, too, move with the change. No one announces that it's time to slow down. They simply feel it. A man carries in the last of the firewood, brushing dirt from his hands as he steps inside. A girl gathers laundry from the line, checking each piece for damp corners before folding it against her chest. At the stream, the water glows with the colour of the sky. A child skips one last stone before being called in. The stone hops twice, then sinks. He nods to himself, satisfied. Inside the cottages, the evening chores finish in fragments. A pot is scrubbed. A cloak is brushed free of dust. A lamp is checked for oil, then lit with a small flame. Each task is quiet. Each one expected. There is comfort in these small closures. Somewhere, a boy feeds the dog scraps from supper. The dog accepts them with practiced gratitude, tail thumping softly against the floor. Nearby, a woman winds thread onto a spindle by firelight, humming without thinking. Her tune is old and without lyrics. The season in the air is autumn, but the season in the heart of the village is winter now. Not the harsh kind with snow and wind, but the restful kind. The kind that invites blankets, low fires, and fewer words. The rhythm of the day slows again, then slows further. A father speaks to his son in tones just above a whisper. A sister braids her younger brother's hair with sleepy fingers. A mother knits while her child leans against her side, half listening to the sound of the needles. There are no clocks, no official hours, just the feeling of time. And now, the village feels like evening in full. The day has folded itself neatly and placed itself aside. Soon, the world will sleep again, but not yet. There are a few soft moments left, moments where nothing happens, and that too is part of the pattern. And now, the day returns to stillness. The light outside is nearly gone, its last embers caught in the tops of trees and along the edges of the rooftops. One by one, the cottages dim. A shutter creaks closed, a candle is pinched out, a door is pulled in tight against the night. Inside, the final movements are slow. A hand folds a cloth. A spoon is placed on the shelf. A child curls beneath a wool blanket, face tucked to the side, breathing steady and deep. A baby stirs once, then settles again with a faint sigh. The fire burns low, not out, but low, enough to keep the edge from the cold, enough to cast gentle shadows on the beams overhead. The dog circles once in his corner, then drops with a soft huff. His tail gives one last twitch. Then silence. Outside, the stars gather again, brighter now without the competition of sun or cloud. The moon lingers, casting silver outlines on the fence posts and carts. A breeze stirs the hay. An owl glides silently across the fields, wings wide and watching. The animals have long since quieted. The oxen sleep standing. The pigs breathe in chorus. The goats doze in awkward heaps, stubborn even in slumber. The hens perch in a line, their heads tucked, their feathers puffed. The village cat slips beneath a cart and disappears from sight. Even the well seems still, its rope resting slack against the side, its bucket damp from use. The forge is dark. The chapel window shows no light. The lane through the village looks like a ribbon laid flat, unmarked by feet for hours now. Nothing stirs, nothing asks to. Sleep here is not chased or coaxed. It arrives like the tide, inevitable, quiet, thorough. The village does not fight it. There is nothing left to do, no reason to resist. Tomorrow will look much the same. That is comfort, not burden. A woman turns once more beneath her blanket. A man adjusts a bundle beneath his head. A child dreams of a crooked-toothed pig wearing a hat and laughs softly in his sleep. The rhythm of the day has faded into breath, into heartbeat, into the slow settling of the earth. And the village sleeps entirely, completely, until morning comes again.